Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. This time you guys have sent in some, well, pretty profound stuff. It's materials about, how we see the world, our perceptions, and, maybe this possibility that we can, like, consciously choose a different experience. So I guess our mission, right, for this deep dive is to, like, really try to understand the core principles, from what you've given us and to see how we might be able to, I don't know, actively select how we feel and, well, see the world around us differently with fresh eyes.
Right.
And the material, it looks like a chapter from a book, maybe. I see
Oh, it's a
4J7
message phone.
PDF in the notes.
Yeah, and I think what really grabs you right away in this is this kind of radical idea. It talks about shedding old beliefs and embracing, well, what it calls a new understanding, a new dream.
Mm-hmm.
It says that the reality we experience, it's not like fixed.
Mm.
It's something we're actually like creating all the time, and that we have the potential to change it. Does that initial idea stand out to you?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sense of like personal power, right? It's like the source is just like throwing it out there. You're not like just along for the ride. You're the artist, you're holding the paintbrush, you're creating this reality, and it's not afraid to like go to the extremes,
Mhm.
saying we can create our own personal hell or our own heaven.
Right, right.
And then it just throws out this like really direct question. It says, why not dream a different dream? Why not use your mind and your imagination and your emotions to dream heaven, like directly to the listener?
Absolutely, yeah. It's like a challenge almost. And then it goes from like this big concept to something more concrete,
Yeah.
a practice, a way to shift how you see things. It
I
talks
just,
about see with different eyes, and it gives you this exercise. It says to close your eyes for a moment and then open them, but open them with the intention of seeing love, like love
okay.
radiating from everything, from the trees, the sky, even the light in the room.
Yeah.
So, what's your first reaction to that?
I mean, it sounds almost too simple, right? Like childlike almost.
Right.
But there's something powerful about it too, to just like decide to see something differently.
Hmm.
And the source, it's not saying to just think about it. It's saying to really perceive it, to actually feel this love coming from everything, from yourself, from other people, and then it goes even further. It says that this way of seeing it is bliss. That's a big statement.
Yeah, it
Good.
is,
Yeah.
and it points to this idea about where we focus our attention.
Yeah.
Like what we pay attention to really shapes how we experience things. And what's interesting here is that it talks about how we see other people.
Right.
Like even when someone is expressing sadness or anger, the source says that beneath that, there's still love,
Yeah.
and that we can see that love if we look for it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, like instead of reacting to their anger, you're trying to see something deeper, something more fundamental.
Exactly. And that connects to this idea of a new life, new dream that the source talks about.
Right.
It describes this life where you don't have to, justify yourself all the time,
Hmm.
like explaining your actions, your feelings, even just your existence. Imagine, how much mental space that would free up.
Yeah, no more like internal debates or or feeling like you always have to prove yourself to others.
Right. So, what part of that really eh, speaks to you?
Well, I think it's that feeling of freedom, because I think a lot of us we're always trying to fit in to be accepted,
Mm.
and this new dream, it's like it's saying you don't need that external validation anymore.
Yeah. And the source goes on to talk about um, this freedom to express your desires,
Yeah.
and your needs,
Right.
like knowing what you want, what you don't want,
Mm.
and being able to communicate that, to say yes or no,
Yeah.
without hesitation.
I mean, how often do you think we hold ourselves back because we're afraid of what people will think?
I think it's probably a lot more common than we realize.
Yeah.
This fear of judgment, it's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah. And the idea that you don't have to, try to control how people react to you,
Uh-huh.
that you're not responsible for their opinions of you.
Hmm.
That's a huge shift.
Absolutely. It's like untangling yourself from all these invisible strings that have been holding you back.
Yeah.
And And then it talks about judgment itself, and the idea that you can forgive easily
Yeah.
and let go of judgments. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it sounds great, right?
Right.
But I think in reality, it's really hard to do, like letting go of those, those old hurts, those grievances.
Yeah, it's not easy, but the source is pointing to this more peaceful way of being,
Mm.
where you don't need to be right all the time, or make someone else wrong. It talks about mutual respect.
Yeah, like a foundation of understanding and acceptance.
Right. And this leads into a really core human fear, the fear of loving and the fear of not being loved.
Okay.
So imagine a life where you're not, constantly worried about being rejected, where you don't need, approval from other people to feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It even says, that you can express love openly,
Mm-hmm.
like saying "I love you" without feeling self-conscious,
Wow.
and just living with an open heart,
Yeah.
without being afraid of getting hurt. What strikes you about that?
It's it's the vulnerability, I think,
Yeah.
but also the incredible freedom to just, be able to love without that fear.
Yeah, and it goes even further. It talks about releasing the fear of taking risks, like fully embracing life.
Yeah.
Not being afraid of loss or even like the fear of being alive or dying.
Wow.
It's about experiencing everything life has to offer without holding back.
So it's not just about like emotional vulnerability. It's about embracing everything, even the scary stuff.
Right, and what's really interesting is how all of these freedoms they seem to come from one place.
Yeah.
This idea of self-love.
Okay.
The source says that it's important to accept yourself unconditionally, your body, your emotions, everything, and it makes it sound like this self-love is like the foundation for everything else.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
if you truly love and accept yourself, then maybe those fears, the fear of judgment, the need for approval, maybe they just maybe they lose their power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that brings us back to that idea of bliss.
Yeah.
The source says that only love can lead to this state of bliss, and it compares it to being in love.
Yeah.
Like seeing love everywhere you look. And what's really empowering is that it says that this isn't some unattainable state. Like it's not just for special people or something.
Right.
It says that anyone can experience this, because other people have done it, and they did it by changing their agreements.
Their agreements.
Yeah, those deep beliefs and assumptions that shape how we see things, and by choosing to dream a different dream.
Okay, so it's like a conscious decision to see the world differently, to experience reality in a new way.
Exactly, and then the source gets into this really interesting historical context. It mentions Jesus talking about the kingdom of heaven and Moses in the promised land,
Right.
and Buddha and Nirvana, and the Toltecs with their idea of a new dream, and it's like it's saying that this message of love and peace and inner freedom, it's been around for centuries,
Yeah.
in different cultures, different traditions. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's fascinating, right? That this idea keeps popping up through our history,
Mhm.
but the source also acknowledges that even though this message has been around for so long, people have really struggled to actually live it.
Yeah, and it even offers a possible reason for that. It mentions this feeling of emptiness that some people experience, even when they're trying to be loving and peaceful. It's
Yeah.
like a disconnect from what they're seeking.
Mhm.
But the main point it makes is that instead of getting hung up on why it's been so difficult, we should just try to be open to the possibility. Like, what if this message is actually true?
Yeah, and then it gets into this really practical stuff, about suffering and happiness,
Right.
and it takes a pretty direct approach. It says that suffering isn't just part of life; it's a choice,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's usually based on excuses, not real reasons.
And it says the same thing about happiness. That it's also a choice.
So it's like we're in control even of our own suffering.
In a way, yes. And it presents this really fundamental choice, like to live in a self-created hell or to choose heaven. And it's a personal decision.
It's not about changing the world around us first, but changing ourselves.
Right. And that leads us to these Toltec concepts that the source mentions, the fog and the parasite. Have you heard of these before?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the fog is called mitote, and it's basically all the mental chatter,
Yeah.
the noise and confusion in our minds that keeps us from seeing things clearly.
So like all the judgments and worries and self-criticism.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the internal parasite, it's like all the negative beliefs we have about ourselves,
Okay.
and the self-sabotaging behaviors.
Like the voice of doubt, the fear of failure.
Right, right. And the source specifically mentions the judge and the victim.
Okay.
So the judge, that's the voice in your head that's always, criticizing and comparing.
Right.
And the victim, that's the part of you that feels powerless,
Mm.
like things are happening to you and you can't do anything about it.
Right.
And what's interesting is that even though these roles create suffering, the source says that we can get attached to them
Attached to them. Why?
because they're familiar, and in a way they feel safe. Like stepping outside those roles, it means facing the unknown.
Yeah, I can see that. So I guess what we're getting from all of this is that we have more power than we think, right?
Exactly.
This new dream, this heaven on earth, it's not some impossible fantasy. It's something we can create by choosing love,
Yeah.
by letting go of fear and judgment.
And the source makes it clear that that this power, it's within you. You have the ability to change your perception, to dream a different dream.
So considering all this, this idea that suffering is in a lot of ways a choice.
Right.
What is one belief, one agreement that you might want to question, as a step towards experiencing this heaven on earth? It's something to really think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been great.